Hi, dyslexia as a gift. You think I'm kidding, don't you? I knew that, or else you have it, or else your child has it, or you know somebody that does. Either way, whatever it is a gift. I'll tell you why. The other day, I was watching political stuff. This is sort of what all of us are kind of doing right now. And I saw the most amazing interview with Newsom, Gavin Newsom. It was a real personal, intimate interview when he talked absolutely confidently and clearly about his dyslexia. I've heard about it before. I mean, when you have dyslexia and you're a special education teacher like I am, I have my PhD in special education and I've worked with kids for years, you pay attention to those kinds of things and you look for those kinds of things. You listen carefully for those kinds of things. And you get really excited when there's this incredible politician who says incredible things, who's done such a good job in California that my friend who loves to be the devil's advocate has said to me over and over and over again, I am crazy about Governor Gavin Newsom. She really does. And she's not crazy about much of anything except for gardens and me. We're buddies. We've been buddies for several years. But to hear her say that, I knew he was special. So I've paid attention to a lot of things he said. And one of the things he said is, boy, it was really hard in school. I was really embarrassed. I was afraid to talk. And I was so scared when they called on me to read. And you know, with anybody with dyslexia, that puts a knot in your stomach because you know exactly what he's talking about. But here he is, an incredibly successful governor of the 5th largest economic business in the world. There's no country, there's only 4 that are bigger economically. And he manages it. And you know what? Push comes to shove, he may be managing our entire U.S. I'm not there. I'm not in the U.S. right now. Those of you who don't know this channel, know that I am in a farm in Ecuador where I can afford it. I can afford to rent a farm. I have almost about 5 acres. I may have even more than that. It's a big, it's a lot of ground, a lot of room. A couple bulls belong to my landlord, and I just love them. I've got gardens all over. I mean, let's talk about dyslexia, okay? What happens when you're a little kid and you're different? It's really tough. It's really, really tough. You feel like everybody's looking at you and everybody's making fun of you. And some of them are. Not all of them, but some of them are. And you just don't know what to do. You feel really bad and really put upon and really... Well, I was fortunate in one way. I found out I had dyslexia at the same time I found out that my IQ was so high that except for one problem in an IQ test, I scored perfect. And in that one, I picked the least likely. And when they came to interview me a few weeks later, they discovered that my answer was better than the one they had picked because I was neurodivergent. I had dyslexia, and I looked at the world in a whole different way. I said, but, you know, my dad has this thing, and he sticks it down in the oil in the engine of the car, and that's how he checks it. And they went, that's a better answer than the one we picked. So they gave me 100%. And I was 7, 8 years old, just a little guy, trying to figure out what's going on in the world and what's wrong with me and what's right with me and why am I so different? What? Well, I learned the hard way that intelligence comes in all kinds of forms, really all kinds of forms. You just never know. And sometimes that struggle helps you produce a level of empathy. I am more empathic than most people I know. I've been a minister and a counselor for almost 40 years now. I would rather volunteer than take any other pathway, because I feel like I do what I really want to do, not what I feel like I have to do for an income. And it makes me feel purposeful, despite my dyslexia and my neurodivergence. Can't even say it hardly. Don't ask me to spell it. That's where my dyslexia is really bad. Really, really bad. I can read. I have a PhD. It took a long time to learn how to read. I didn't graduate till I was 63. So you can see that it took me a long time to learn how to read. But it's not easy. And I still look a lot of things up, but I cannot spell. No. Now, dog and God or vice versa, and that's pretty easy. But there's a lot of other things I never get right. I just never get them right. It's just, and I've learned to accept it, because I've also accepted that intelligence comes in lots of different forms. And that's just part of the way it is. And different brains develop different strengths. And I'm making this video today because I went online purposely to look for, is there anything that dyslexia is really good at? Yeah, and I found it. Oh my gosh, I'm old, 79, but I was ready to do the happy dance all over the living room floor because I was so delighted. Adrian Lambert is a scholar in the UK, and he wrote, let me double check, make sure I get it right, A Grand United Theory of Doom. It's on Substack, A Grand United Theory of Doom. What that means is 1962, when the book Silent Spring came out, I knew the Earth was in trouble, just like that. But Dad's right. My dad was a little different too. Dad's right. We're in big trouble. We are really screwing up our planet, and somebody needs to do something about it. We really need to get on top of this. We need to make some changes. Things are just going to cascade. It's going to be like a domino just falling down, and everything's going to go to hell. And I got teased like crazy. Everybody, what's the matter with you, girl? And it continued. And then, things went on, and we went into the 60s, and I graduated from high school, and I was still just going on and on about the planet. I was born on a farm, raised for a short while on the farm, and always wanted to go back. And I just wanted to get my hands in the dirt and tell the earth how sorry I was, and I wanted everybody else to understand and people to do things and recycle. And I was just doing it like a whirlwind. Well, that's because of the dyslexia. I looked at what was going on differently, because intelligence is different. Strengths and weaknesses are different. In 2007, I was in a conference, it was in the audience of a conference that was supposed to hold about 75,000 people. We'd been invited, I was working on my PhD, and then we'd been invited to 3 different colleges: Northern Arizona University, Arizona State, and University of Arizona. I was at the University of Arizona, and it happened that John Overpeck was one of the speakers. The same day he was supposed to be receiving the Nobel Prize and sharing it with Al Gore, October of 2007. And 75,000 that they prepared for was 34 people. And my husband wasn't even one of the 75,000 invited, but he was there with me. I don't know how many other people brought their spouses, but there were only 34 of us. We listened to everybody. We discovered at the time that the United States, only 32% believed in climate change, 60% in India, and 59% in Mexico. I looked at my husband, and he looked at me, and we both said, okay, because I had been talking about finishing up my degree in central Mexico. I'd been taken there by my professor, my doctoral chair, one summer, and I just knew that's where I belonged. So I went, and I went back. And I lived there for about 5 years, finished up my doctorate, and until my husband couldn't breathe well anymore. And then we moved to Ecuador. But living there and seeing what was going on and recognizing and researching was so depressing, because I discovered that in Mexico, 58 different varieties just of native corn had been eliminated, totally eradicated from the country of Mexico because of the GMOs, because of Roundup. I learned that the house that my husband was building, we replaced a house for a family whose house caught on fire. We did a lot of nonprofit things there, a lot of nonprofit things in Mexico when we were so much younger. And we learned that across the street from that house, they were using Roundup. Oh, I was devastated. I was just devastated. Because I knew that more things, more heirloom would be gone. So I started researching. I started looking for blue zones, areas where indigenous people lived, or there is one area actually in California where the people aren't indigenous, but they're of the same faith. And it shows that those people who focus on eating fresh food, organic food, they live longer. And those people who avoid lots of different factories and plants and businesses that spew forth bad stuff have better air, and they have cleaner water. And there's only one place, like I said, in all of the United States. It's very small. It's in Northern California. But I started looking for areas, and I found Ecuador. In fact, 3 or 4 years after we moved here, it was named higher and cleaner and better ecologically aware than Costa Rica. And they continue to treat the Galapagos, which is part of Ecuador, with the most incredible respect for the environment. And although I understand that there is gum here, and I don't know what else, but there have been very sad things to happen here. I know there's been oil spills and things like that, but they continue to be more ecologically aware than many other places. And where we chose to live, here in this rural area of a little village called Malacatos, there's a little rural area here. And all of my neighbors are very aware of climate change. And other people don't talk about it, but everybody here is aware of it. And so I'm constantly watching that sort of thing. And what I discovered is there was an article that I read to you. It's called A Grand United Theory of Doom. Well, the doom is climate change, collapse of economics, collapse of supply chains, all the different political leaders acting like fools. All of that, most people haven't noticed. The vast majority of people haven't noticed. But people with dyslexia have. Isn't that amazing? I mean, really? That's why I wanted to do the happy dance. I could not believe, but then I realized we think differently. We look at things differently, things that seem unbelievably obvious to me. The collapse of society in so many ways. The collapse of authoritarianism. The rise of people wanting tough leaders. And so many things that I see and go, oh, God, no. I feel so helpless. Until I read the article, and that made me feel good. Because then I knew I could go on today and I could talk to you about being dyslexic and what it means. It means that early in life, I learned that people learn differently. Early in life, I learned that I could overcome this at some levels, and and learn to accept my weirdness when I saw things so clearly and others didn't. And for me, one of the biggest ways is it shows up in my art. I look at art in a very different way than other people do. And I love doing art, and art keeps me away from being so anxious about all the things that are going wrong right now. And that's a blessing. I learned humility. I learned empathy. I have a tremendous amount of empathy for people with any kind of, well, that's the reason I did a doctorate in special education, especially so late in life, because I wanted to know more about myself. I didn't understand what was, I had rooms filled with students with learning disabilities of all kinds. And I felt so much sympathy towards every one of them, and yet so much drive, because I knew I could say, hey, wait a minute. That's not just you. That's also me. What, miss? I'd say, yes, I have disabilities. I had trouble learning. I've had to learn how to teach in a way that helps you understand. I've had to learn how to teach in a way that you understand better from me than you would from somebody else, because I learned differently. And it's just great. It makes you feel like, we used to tease when we were all in school that it's hard for people to understand whether they should call us special education teachers or teachers with special education, because it seemed like so many of us who went into the field did it because we had something that didn't make sense to us. And we felt the embarrassment, the shame, the confusion, the irritation, the sadness, the uncomfortable feeling of not being the same as everybody else, not being normal. We also learned resilience, tremendous amount of resilience, and how to push and push and push. I used to sleep a maximum of 4 hours the entire time I was writing my dissertation. Oh God, writing is so hard. It's so difficult. Reading is too, but so is writing. It's really hard. And so what did I do? Early in life, I learned how to be a public speaker. I learned how to, I'm really good at math. I learned how to remember numbers. I learned how, I had a family to take care of, so I learned how to be a waitress. Without writing things down, I would remember what people ordered. I got good. I did. I got up to the point I could do 14 different people, even if they got up and switched places. Drinks, and then I'd come back, and then I'd take their dinner order. And I didn't goof. Because they became the number. And the drink became their name. It was crazy because I couldn't see letters, but numbers made sense to me. They always made sense to me. Letters still don't make sense to me, but numbers made sense to me. And that's resilience. That's digging deeply and finding what you're made of and pushing forward and not letting anybody hold you back just because you happen to have something that doesn't make you the same as your classmates. Maybe. And maybe some of your classmates are faking it until somebody figures it out. And somebody always does. If you go in school high enough grades, somebody's going to figure it out if you've got a challenge. And it may be early because you have a really sensitive teacher who is really sympathetic, or someone like myself who knows what to look for. And you just never know. You just never know. And there's also developmental delay, and that's really important for parents to understand. The first, third, fourth grade, anything that happens from birth up till third, fourth grade could just be developmental delay. I had a young girl come to me when I was in Mexico. Her mom was an English speaker, and the girl was an English speaker. And she was a black girl, and mom was Caucasian. A long story, but that's how it worked out. He was an adopted child, and they told me her IQ was 70. I don't think so. She was real self-confident. She was just a little pistol. I just loved her to death. I thought, boy, she is a crackerjack. She really is. She was such a neat kid. And so we started working with her with equine therapy, and she started going to school in Spanish-speaking schools. Yeah. IQ 70, which is supposed to be right at the very edge of starting down into the area where they say they're never going to learn anything. Well, if I remember correctly, she was in first grade, and by third grade, she was right at grade level in both languages. Okay, so don't tell me the child had a 70 IQ. Tell me the child was developmentally delayed, and that happens. But you know, if a parent, and I've got to say this, if a parent decides that their child is disabled, let's say that mother had said, oh, poor baby, I'm going to take care of it. What you do is you have planned helplessness. That child does not try because you have convinced the child. If you think of the movie The Secret Garden, you'll see where that comes from, where you just have made the child think they're ill and they're not. But the mothers, I had a mother once, and she had a boy with Down syndrome. You can tell when kids have Down syndrome just by looking at him. And he could have been president. It wouldn't have fazed her a bit, because she convinced him he could do anything he wanted. And he did. He did. So if your child or your grandchild or his neighbor's child has been told that they may or may not have this or that or the other, please just encourage the child, because you can't ever depend on developmental delay. It's just some kids, you know, they don't come with a map. They don't come with a book of instructions. And they don't know. Just like I once had a javelina that came up when I was up in the desert, and it was not supposed to be at that altitude. Well, nobody told it. You got to remember those things. I'm sorry, it wasn't a javelina. It was a Gila monster. Gila monster. They're supposed to be down lower altitudes. Well, the same way with children. Always tell the child, you can do this. Come on, let's do this. Let's do it together. Come on, let's try it. Okay, well, that didn't work that time, but let's try it again. You will not believe how much kids can get over and how confident they can be. My mother thought, oh, God, I had a girl. She's never going to amount to a hill of beans. Well, I have 2 bachelor's degrees. I have a master's degree. I have an EDS, and I have a PhD in 2 different subjects. So don't ever tell a kid that they're not going to make it, because they will. And don't ever tell them there's a real problem with what they've got, because they can overcome it. Betcha. If you're a good mom, good aunt, good grandma, good neighbor, you never know what you can do. Okay, any questions? Ask me down below. I'll be sure to answer. And while you're down there, check out our nonprofit. We have some history of our nonprofit, what we've done the last 34 years, especially in Mexico. And we've got 2 artists, myself and another one, who have work that is to remind you to take care of the earth. Maybe there's something down there you'd like to. Thank you.